Hey everyone, welcome to another Thursday edition of News, Games, and More here at IGN. I'm Michael Swaim here with Ryan McCaffrey, David Griffin, and Casey DeFreitas. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Thursday crew,
Happy to be
represent.
here. Howdy.
Uh, Before we get to our headline story, so we can let a few more people trickle in before we dig into all the Bethesda news, we had some news come in right before the episode started. I realized I guess that was the time to explain the goggles and the makeup, but I think the moment's past, Casey. I think
Oh, the
people have
moment's
to just
passed.
I
Just
guess
deal
it's
with
just
it.
Halloween themed. Yeah, we're
It's
just leaning
Halloween
into
themed.
it.
It's
The intro's done. We're into stories. But what I wanted to talk about was the Netflix price hike, which just got announced today. And as you probably suspected, I'm going to go right to David, our entertainment guru, for your take on this Netflix price hike. What do we know and what do we think so far?
Well, it happens every few quarters or so. I guess it's been a little while since the last one. So Netflix is their basic package is going up about, Swami just said like about 8%, from 12.99 to 13.99 for streaming. I know for me personally, I don't know how many of you out there in the same boat as me, but I have the premium tier because, I think a lot of us nowadays are getting 4K TVs. They're becoming more affordable. They're out there. The new gaming systems are supporting 4K content. So we want, 4K TVs. And if you want to watch your stuff in 4K, have the Ultra HD, the Dolby Vision, the HDR, all that good stuff, you're going to have to pay now instead of 16 or 15.99, $16 in the US, you're going to pay $18, 17.99 in the US. So it's getting in that HBO tier for me now. I mean, HBO for the longest time, at least in the US, has been about $15 a month. And back in the day before HBO Max, they would run one big show like a Game of Thrones with a comedy, like Veep or something like that. And for only watching a couple of shows at a time, I had no issues paying $15 a month for HBO. Now, whether you think HBO has more content per, show it releases, if it's better, than Netflix is like, it's a personal decision. But I think Netflix offers enough for me that this price hike, I mean, you got to pay the evil empire. You have to pay. They're not evil, but you have to pay them. You have to pay the piper. So I don't mind paying them a few extra dollars because as long as they keep putting out tons of new content, like the Crown is coming out next month. That's one of my favorite shows. I just reviewed what did I just review? I'm blanking. Blood of Zeus on Netflix, which is awesome. I gave it a 9. You can read the review on IGN.com, but I would just go watch the show now. It's from the people that did Castlevania. It's really cool. So um I don't know. I'm for it. I'm gonna pay it, even though it's a price. Like it's annoying. It'll be out $2 more a month, but I don't know. I don't know about what everybody else thinks, but I'm gonna keep paying Netflix. It's gonna keep happening.
Also, it should be noted they haven't raised the price on the very standard streaming package, which I would guess, without knowing for sure, that most people at this point have outgrown that or have the more standard, which they did tag as the most popular, highest selling package.
Right.
But you can technically still have stream one thing at a time in SD for I believe $8.99. But that price has not changed. Yeah, that's right, $8.99 a month. Casey, thoughts on the Netflix rate increase or the timing of
I
it? Anything?
I feel like they just keep raising this to combat people account sharing, not to cast any blame on anyone, but how many of these premium tier streams are actually being shared between 4 people, right? And then it makes that price not that bad.
Yeah,
Not saying that you should do it, but I'm saying that probably to them, they're doing it to combat it.
I also wonder if they're trying to combat bandwidth usage with the COVID pandemic and such a surge in streaming content being basically the only thing there is to do at
Yeah.
home after you're done with work. I don't know if that's affecting their bandwidth to like an alarming degree or if this is in any way a response to that.
I mean, I've
Um,
been a lot more willing to pay for more streaming services during these past couple of months because I'm not spending that money on other entertainment. So, what's another $8 a month when I'm not going out to lunch or going out to a bar? Like, I might as well spend it on
oh
streaming
yeah.
services. So,
And the ones that you end up finding are folded in, like, the moment I realized Borat 2 was free because I already have Amazon Prime, the speed with which I watched it outpaced any, like, interest I could have had in purchasing a ticket and going to it. I would have
yeah.
sat around for a while. Ryan, thoughts on Netflix? You gonna stick around?
For sure. I mean, they first of all, Casey completely hit the nail on the head with they know they can see the IPs of where the sign-ins occur. They know when there's account sharing going on. So excellent point by Casey. But yeah, like quite frankly, as long as they keep delivering the content the way they are doing so, they can absolutely keep charging, keep raising the prices because, as David noted, they just keep not only do they keep dropping new content all the time, but good content. Like they just keep pumping out really good stuff. It's just as long as the spice flows, they can continue raising the rates.
I
Well,
mean,
to be
I
Go
was
ahead.
just say I definitely get $18 worth of entertainment out of Netflix every month. So if you look at it like that, I guess I'm fine with it.
Well, yeah, if you look at it reasonably. But to play devil's advocate, um, I do think there's a swath of people, and this is a part of me, and it's not all of me yet, but who I consider Netflix sort of it's the widest bin of the streaming platforms where I rely between Netflix and Hulu for a lot of my comfort shows, like to rewatch your Simpsons or your The Offices. And it seems like streaming services now, like Peacock's taking The Office and Parks and Rec back. Those won't be on Netflix starting in January. And so there's this consolidation of once every network has a streaming service, which is almost the case at this point, if not already the case, and all these contracts sort of sort themselves out, are we just ending up with cable again, but it's through the internet and you buy the channels individually? Because if you add it up that way, it's expensive again.
Mhm.
And it
But the
feels like such
difference
a
is
waste of
you don't have
technology.
to you can pick and choose, and that's what cable always failed. They never gave us the a la carte option we want. And so now we are going to have that just through in a fragmented way with a bunch of logins and passwords. So
Mm.
it's on the cable companies for not giving the people what they wanted to begin with. That's why nobody has cable TV or satellite TV anymore.
Well, I was really
Yeah.
excited when I heard HBO Max was going to get Crunchyroll, like an anime what do I catalog, but it doesn't have
Mhm.
all of Crunchyroll's catalog. It only has some of it, so it's kind of like just a tease. And if you already have Crunchyroll, you can't replace it with HBO Max. Anyway, that's totally off topic. I just wanted to complain about something.
I don't think so at all because that's the point is I used to be like, okay, streaming's great. You just need Netflix. And then I'm like, I don't need Hulu. I don't need Hulu. I need Hulu. It drops enough that I need Amazon Prime. And I'm like, but those are the three. And then you basically have everything. And it's like Disney Plus comes in and you're like, well, that Mandalorian show I hear is real good. And every each service is cheap, but so cheap that if they just raise the price $1 a year, I won't
Mhm.
notice per se until suddenly I'm like, my entertainment budget is all my money. I worry about the slippery slope, but
S
they're also
one
combating. There's an arms race involving account sharing and torrents and all this stuff. So maybe it all balances out. I don't
Well, the
know.
nice
Casey,
part too
oh, go
is
ahead.
you're not locked into any kind of 1 year or any
Mhm.
kind of long-term agreement. You can just pick and choose like if I might pick up when inevitably Picard season 2 comes out, like
Mm,
yeah, when that's over, I might just or even while it's going because I do want to support that show. I might, pick it up for the 1 to 2 months while the show runs and also watch Lower Decks, which I've heard great things about and totally want to watch, but not enough to want to pay for a month. So it's like, you can just pick up a month here and there when enough shows have built up on that platform that you want to watch, and then you binge them all and cancel it at the end of the month.
That's exactly what I do. That is my strat.
I don't do that, but I should. Speaking of the intersection of our Xbox Maven and consumer choice, let's get to our headline story about the recent, well, in relation to the recent Microsoft purchase of Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax Media. We did we speak to? One of these is from us, but I want to make sure I'm not misquoting. Well, I'm afraid I can't source the article. Maybe someone on panel can, but nevertheless, I do have the quotes. Bethesda Game Studios director Todd Howard said it's hard to imagine Elder Scrolls 6 being Xbox exclusive and said, quote, I would agree it's hard to imagine in response to a question. But he also said that they're deciding that on a case-by-case basis and said further, quote, we haven't gone through all of that, to be honest. I can't project where things will be. So it's nebulous, and yet a lot of people are taking this as the arrow sort of wavering on the side of, okay, we're going to get Elder Scrolls 6 cross-platform. I don't necessarily know that I'm ready to fully believe that yet, but Ryan, what do you think?
I've had the privilege of getting to know Todd Howard in a professional context enough over the last 15 years, since since Oblivion, since Elder Scrolls 4. If you know Todd, like I can hear Todd saying this in his sort of particular tone and sense of humor, and he was repeating back the question in a sense. Like the interviewer said, it would be hard to imagine it not coming to PS5, and Todd said, it would be hard to imagine. This is a non-story in my opinion because they're now into uncharted waters. They've been acquired by Microsoft. He is not saying literal. He is not agreeing that it would be he's not suggesting that it's not going to happen. He's just kind of snarkily this is in my opinion, my interpretation based on my professional relationship with Todd Howard. He's just sort of cheekily parroting back the question, and he's not actually saying anything one way or the other. And I do not think Elder Scrolls 6 or any of the other big boys are going to come to PS5.
There you go. Well, because again, being difficult to imagine is not a no or a yes.
Todd's very unique sense of humor, which I adore.
Casey, thoughts around this?
I don't even know Todd Howard, and that's exactly how I read it, is the way Ryan
Oh.
explained. Yeah, I was just like, it would be hard to imagine, wouldn't it be? But that doesn't mean it's not happening. Like,
Okay, good. I'm glad we all saw that. And he even went on to say, quote, if you look at every Elder Scrolls game, there has been some exclusivity on Xbox or with Microsoft. We've partnered with every game. So he's like, yeah, but there's been some form of exclusivity. So I don't know. Don't imagine too much, but maybe imagine. So I agree that it's a bit of a nothing story. We made it our headline story. So I'm going to go ahead and ask.
Well, everybody's
David.
talking about it.
Well, that's true. They
Yeah.
are talking about it. I think because this is truly a vital question for gamers right now, but I don't think it's one we actually have the answer to today. But David, how big of a deal is it for you if Elder Scrolls comes to PS5 or not?
It's not as big of a deal. People probably heard me say this before, but my setup at home is I have a PC and a PlayStation 5. So, I mean, I would assume that because it's Microsoft, that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to come to PC. So I'm not worried about having the opportunity to play it. But I was going to ask Ryan. I was just curious, like, could this be like they did with Tomb Raider at one point, like a timed exclusive, maybe? And then maybe hold it for Xbox for a year, like 8 months to a year, and then drop it on PlayStation. But that would be huge if they didn't have it on PlayStation. I mean, Elder Scrolls is such a massive game. People love it.
I mean, that is definitely on the table. Microsoft has that option if they, you're right. They may decide that a kind of hybrid exclusivity like that, where it's like, all right, we'll bring everybody in to our platform and our ecosystem for a year, but by holding on to this for a year, and then once everybody that's gonna come in has come in, and once everybody that's in has played it, we'll go ahead and put it out on PlayStation 5 and sell a whole bunch more copies. That is definitely a very strong possibility for sure.
One of our commenters, not Rocket Surgery, said if they're smart, they'll sell it as many places as they can, then talk about how the Xbox is pro-consumer, unlike your other choices. Throwing some shade at Sony there, but I do think that's an interesting point. Xbox with Game Pass and I'm sorry, I forget the name of some of the services. I bet Ryan can help me out, but All Access. I think All Access is the one I was trying to get at because it evokes, I think, what they're going for with this marketing beat. And by that, I don't mean that in a cynical way. I mean, with this, like the movement behind the series is to sort of create this ecosystem. They want to be seen as pro-consumer. That's a bit at odds with acquiring a company and then keeping the game on your side of the playground.
No, it's not. It's no different than we were just talking about Netflix. The Netflix going and buying up the rights to Friends and all these other things that they have done over the years to get you to subscribe and continue to subscribe. Because Microsoft's got Game Pass, they've got their services that they want you on. So yeah, you got to have the content to get people into your ecosystem. So when you can easily write a $7.5 billion check to pick up the Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Starfield, Doom, Wolfenstein, Dishonored, et cetera, et cetera, you can just keep. I mean, that's a pretty good investment if you're trying to be the Netflix of video games, because with all that stuff, people are going to they're going to want to come into your ecosystem.
It's true, and I will say Elder Scrolls 6 is definitely one of the games that, if I didn't already have to have both consoles for work, could convince me to buy a console just because I need that one game, especially if it came out and made the kind of splash that Skyrim did and everyone said it's great, you got to try it. I don't think I could resist. How about you, Casey?
I have a history of buying consoles to play one single specific game. For example, I bought the PS3 to play The Last Guardian and a future Monster Hunter, both which never came to the PS3. And then I bought an Xbox One to play Scalebound, which also never came. So what I'm saying is
Oh,
maybe
poor
don't buy the system until the game actually is out.
Very sage advice, I think.
It's
All
funny.
right,
I was gonna
moving
say
on.
I was gonna say real quick, the
Please.
studios love a buyer like me, because I'm one of those people that will play games on multiple systems. Like GTA is like, oh, it's Xbox, oh cool. Xbox One, oh great. Oh, now it's on PC. Oh, I'll buy that one too. Like they have me in their grip. I just buy it all. I mean, even like with Skyrim, I was just thinking like, oh, I should get it for Switch, even though I have it right here in front of me on PC and a console. But it's like, oh, it's on Switch. I want to play Skyrim some more mobilely, so I should get it on Switch. So I don't know. They definitely have my number for that.
Casey, did you pre-order an Xbox Series X specifically for Halo Infinite? And is the Halo Infinite delay your fault?
You jinxed it.
No.
It's all your fault.
No. Halo Infinite was canceled before I pre-ordered the Xbox. So. But it could have been my fault.
David, you made me realize I also would do almost anything for a Skyrim 6 in VR. I hope that happens immediately, because Elder Scrolls 6. The Skyrim VR port is hard as heck to control, and nevertheless, the vistas of the natural world are like deeply moving and just awesome in VR. So I hope they continue to lean into that, but I don't know if they have any compelling reason to. I don't think a ton of people did Skyrim
I mean,
VR.
they won't do it at launch, but they might do it down
Right.
the road for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. What I want is them to do it in such a way where they actually worry about making the controls very intuitive and,
That'd be
making
cool.
it VR friendly. But yeah, I think that's all I want to say about Bethesda. So for today, at least, so let's move on. Who got a chance to watch the Demon Souls gameplay trailer from Bluepoint today? Oh, just me. Okay. All right.
Oh
Well,
no,
great
I'm
segment
sorry.
already.
Yeah,
It was
I've seen the
rad.
footage. Yeah.
It was for Demon Souls. Oh, you have seen it. Okay. It was just our instant rapport and our chemistry on display. It was for Demon Souls, the latest from Bluepoint, who also remade Shadow of the Colossus not too long ago, and I played all the way through that and thought that was just a phenomenal. It's a shame we talk remakes a lot because it's sort of the era of remakes, and I forgot what a step up. Not that the original wasn't a fantastic game, but Shadow of the Colossus showed so much care and effort, and it's looking like Demon Souls is being built at least with the same sort of gusto, and I really trust Bluepoint at this point. IGN got to speak with the creative director of the game, Gavin Moore, and I have a few details about the remake. Bluepoint's offering 2 visual modes, cinematic and performance modes, and just like they sound, I can get into the details if it comes up or someone asks in chat, but you can also go to IGN.com for all the technical details. But as you'd expect, cinematic mode is 4K, 30 FPS, and focuses on cinematic. And then performance mode is 60 FPS and more about like if you're playing, a Demon Souls, like you want to feel the reaction time, so frame rate becomes more important. So they're doing interesting things with control over aspects like that. Okay, I asked who'd seen it. Let me try this again against my better judgment. Are there fans of this genre? Of the genre that this launched on the panel today?
I'm scared. These games scare me because you die a lot, and I'm when I watch people play these Demon Souls and Bloodborns, I look at them like I look at LeBron James or Tiger Woods, and like, man, that must take a lot of practice, a lot of skill, a lot of hand-eye coordination. And I go play a game on like the easiest level setting ever. I'm just a wimp. They look cool. I'm a big wimp.
It does look beautiful. Well, this may appeal to you then, David. This is a quote from our interview. If you think about the super fast loading, the frustration of the original game, I think this is true. I agree, is not necessarily the challenge of the dying. It's the, oh my God, I have to wait 2 minutes before I can get back into the game and try again, take revenge, and get my souls back. And now with super fast loading, you're straight back into the game. For example, I always used to compare these games. I know it's a weird comparison to Rayman Legends and Origins, because those were some of the first games I played where you died a lot and the level reloaded almost instantaneously. And it took all the sting out. You didn't have to read a stupid game tip that you'd seen a million times. You just tried again. And I do think super fast loading will be a great quality of life thing for this genre, particularly. Um,
Mhm.
Casey, you're nodding. You
Yeah, no,
must have
I just
formulated a
completely
thought.
agree with you. I I mean, that was frustrating for Bloodborne, especially. I mean, people get tilted and then you just die over and over to the same thing, and having to wait for the loading time is just an insult to injury. And you know what? Maybe we need the loading times. I take it back. Maybe we'll need the loading times to cool off and think about things in a different manner. And maybe now that we don't have loading times, we won't think about our actions and we'll just keep failing over and over again. I'm being
Well,
facetious, but you know what I mean.
true. Tagged and noted. It's also clearly a very pretty game, a very pretty remake, and I think one of the games that starts to at least hint at what next gen might feel like, and I think that's a reason people are even more excited about it. Of course, people who are fans of this particular genre, especially excited. Ryan, will you be trying out Demon Souls? Do you play this type of game?
No, it's funny. The Soulsborne type games, I have not gotten into, even though I do love challenging stuff. But I love the high speed. I need high speed. So Ninja Gaiden, uh,
Mm.
Doom Eternal, like that's I don't know. I like the action fast. If it's gonna be like tough and in your face, for some reason, I don't know, the slower, more plodding action of the Souls games just doesn't do it for me.
All right. Well, as the only person I think I'm getting this right, who's going to play this, I would be interested in this information. Blue Point said they added, quote, thousands upon thousands of new sounds into the game. I think so important in the horror genre. Obviously, paying close attention to what the original has done. I'm using horror genre loosely, but it's certainly a game where sound design is very key, and it's exciting to me to hear that they've added that many sounds. And at the same time, in the same interview, that they said this is the game that gave birth to this genre of gaming, and so we have to pay great respect to the original vision, but at the same time, we have to make a lot of modern day life improvements. And then they talk about the camera and how they've improved it, but you can turn it off and have the old camera if you want. And honestly, that's what I wish they had done with the Mario 64 recent re-release. So I think Blue Point, I think it's in good hands. If you are a fan of Demon Souls or just looking for something that looks a little bit next gen and gives you a little bit of that thrill, how about a remake of a very old game?
I will say I really appreciate the fact that even though this isn't my kind of game generally, Demon Souls is one of the very, very, very few games, small handful, that are launching on either of these two new consoles that is built specifically for next gen.
Mhm.
There's that. There's the NBA 2K21 next gen version. There is a separate version that's built for next gen. And then Astro Playroom, and because then Destruction All Stars for PS5 got delayed. So yeah, it's a real short list of actual next gen built games. So very curious to see this in action.
And although I do understand from Jonathan Dornbush's piece recently at IGN.com that Astro's Playroom does feel like it really is trying to be a full game, it's essentially a tech demo, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
playable pack in. It's definitely not a thing that would be $60 on a if they sold it
sure.
in a store.
But at least literally puts the machine through its paces, lets you sort
Yeah,
of see these are the things it can do
exactly.
someday. Someday. Um, okay, this won't take long because if I remember from our pre-chat before the show started, I'm also the only one who's put time into Watch Dogs Legion so far. Is
I'll
that
get
right?
there.
I
Not
see
yet.
nodding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
But
get there.
you can check out Dan Stapleton's review at IGN.com released today. He gave it an 8, which is great. I personally have not gotten. I'm about 5 hours in, and it is just not connecting with me for whatever reason.
Hmm.
I actually thought the review was very insightful, as Dan usually is, but I don't know. It felt like the anti quarantine game, whereas Animal Crossing felt like the antidote to these times. It concerns, DedSec, the protagonist-led hacktivist organization, being blamed for a terrorist attack in London and having to sort of rebuild DedSec from the ground up, featuring recruit anyone in the world, any NPC you want, play style that has been basically the big thing they're touting. And so for me personally, it comes off as like alienated because there's no main character to latch onto other than maybe Bagley, the robot voice that cracks wise. And it's about like drones being everywhere, spying on you, and the episodes play out, as Dan pointed out, very much like Black Mirror episodes, sort of, which is just not the vibe I'm in need of right now. It makes
That's
me very
fair.
stressed out.
It's
Not in a
depressing.
yeah, it's kind of bumming me out. And yet I understand that it has greatly varied gameplay. And I will say, picking a different NPC to play with greatly changes your play style, the way you'd attack a mission. And that alone is a phenomenal, I think, right? Innovation on especially Ghost of Tsushima, which I also love, just having done homage to look, you're going to go in loud, or you're going to go in quiet, or you're going to go in quiet until things fall apart and it's loud. Um, this game aims to, and I would say somewhat accomplishes, the idea of, well, depending on who you play as, you're going to do different things. And there's like 5 different things instead of 2 or 3. So, yeah, that's all I've got. That's my take. You can check out Dan's much more in depth and well thought out take at IGN.com. And I don't think I'll ask people to speak extemporaneously on a game they haven't played yet. So we'll move on.
I do have one thing.
Please.
It's coming. Watch Dogs Legion is coming out tonight, and when that launches, look out on IGN wikis for all of the tips and tricks you need to do really well at that game.
That's a good thing to have.
That's it.
Mass Over Effect says this might be an interesting game. Great. Why
It
did I
might be.
choose that as the comment to bring?
That's a great name,
Okay.
by the way. Sorry, Mass Over Effect. That's a great username.
That's all right, it is. Final Fantasy 16 news also dropped today. A bit of a lore dump, which personally are my favorite, because what I really want is for your game to come and to dive into the world. So we were introduced to the 6 realms of Final Fantasy 16, and of course, through the descriptions, we're able to interpolate some factoids about what kind of a world it's going to be and what the story might be like. Not too much, but there's some stuff there. Who's a Final Fantasy fan here?
Tough
I mean,
room today.
Like, all right, look, I'm not. I don't want to call myself a Final Fantasy fan because I am a fair weather Final Fantasy fan. I don't play all of them. I
No,
enjoy
this
some
is
of
not
them.
the time to hide your light under a bushel. This is the time to say, yes, I've played Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm a huge fan.
Well,
That's what I'm
okay.
saying.
I did play that one. I loved Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn. Final Fantasy 16 has art style, and honestly, when I was watching the original trailer, I was like, "Is this kind of has Final Fantasy 14 vibes?" And it looks like
Mhm.
it's going to have that kind of setting, which is more medieval fantasy, old fantasy, steampunky,
Yeah,
like
and
less futuristic.
it
So
doesn't literally alternate, but they go back and forth between like
yeah.
fantasy and
Mhm.
future fantasy.
And I personally prefer fantasy, so I am super excited that this is fantasy, and I love the artwork that they have released for this. I think it looks great. I just look and I'm like, "Man, this is so beautiful," and I'm excited to learn more.
Yes, it's quite pretty. It will take place in the land of Valisthea, a land, quote, studded with colossal mountains of glittering crystal called mother crystals. So some materia resonance there. And it sort of also has, I think, some link to it or some Legend of Zelda to it, because it talks about 5 different nations. Each one has a dominant, which is a person of power who is able to do a special summon that can, quote, level nations. And so, you go to different lands, and each land has sort of a specialty or a sphere, sort of like Avatar, but some Legend of Zelda vibes. I'm very interested. I tend to catch every third Final Fantasy, but going all the way back to the NES days. Ryan or David, have you ever dabbled with the FF? Have you ever effed with the FF? I should have said.
I played 10 and I
Oh,
didn't finish
good.
it. And then I saw Spirits Within, the
Oh, I
animated
didn't see
movie,
that.
or
Yeah,
I
was
saw
that?
that in
Yeah, that was.
theaters.
I actually like that movie. It's
remember
not bad.
theaters.
It's not bad. I haven't seen it in years, but yeah, that's about all I've dabbled in FF.
Yeah, the only downside to any Final Fantasy 16 blurb is that you have to that game's at least 2 years away. It is not coming
Accurate.
anytime soon. Sony has a habit of, that they'll wow you with a great reveal, but generally they show things pretty early. Hey, it works for them. I'm not saying, I'm not criticizing them that way, but you just got to kind of calibrate your expectations. That trailer did not have any release date on it. So it's probably going to be a while, particularly, with COVID throwing everything off for everyone. But yeah, when it gets here, it does. I like that. I mean, I do like that pretty much every Final Fantasy is totally different. So it's not like,
Mhm.
there have been, well, way more than 16 of them, in fact, with all the little offshoots, even off the mainline series. But you can just jump into any of them, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, Ex Deo Veritas says, dang, that is a lot of lore. They're really putting a lot of effort into this. And that's what sort of got me excited is I love magic systems and high fantasy and figuring out what's your deal franchise. What are your high magic systems? And Final Fantasy team almost every time creates completely new lore. I'm just going to rattle off the names of the kingdoms and then we'll move on. The Crystalline Dominion, the Iron Kingdom, Game of Thrones vibes. The Dalmekian Republic, also Game of Thrones vibes. I'm getting a fair amount of Game of Thrones vibes. Wallowed, Sambrique, and Rosaria. I think that's all of them.
Are they at war? No.
It's just they're inevitably at war.
Eh,
Bunch of new, cool, multi-syllabic fantasy names for us
yeah,
nerds
they
to
showed
memorize. I love
the
it.
main. We also learned. I'm just looking at the article as well, but we also learned more about the main protagonist, who is described. He's tasked with protecting his younger brother Joshua, described as a dominant of the Phoenix, and a dominant is a special person who's essentially a vessel for devastating creatures called icons, special summons that can level nations. So that sounds cool.
So it's like the Legend of Zelda Dark Phoenix Saga. That's what I'm choosing. That's my mind canon, that sounds amazing. All right. Speaking of things that will not come to fruition for a long, long time, if ever, our final story of the day. Hideo Kojima explains to IGN. This is the one I was thinking of at the top of the show. That Death Stranding 2 concept art. Now, I'm sure our producer Marian will bring it up momentarily if it's not already up. I got to look into the lens. But recently there was a viral image of Hideo going over some concept art or with some concept art on his desk, and a user spotted that if you zoomed in, you can see that it had the Bridges insignia on it, which of course is a Death Stranding reference. The Bridges Corporation being, anyway, everyone should play Death Stranding. I like Death Stranding a lot, but Hideo has said, quote, I'm always thinking about ideas as I'm working on games. These aren't major plans, but just fragments of new ideas. I think about these ideas myself and then I explain them to other people in order to get opinions about them. And this comes in the wake of Kojima saying that Kojima Productions has begun work on a new project, that it would not be a Death Stranding sequel, and that recently a big project had been scrapped. So for all we know, that could be the Death Stranding sequel, or it seems like he's going to take his ideation any way he wants. But let's see, who have I not put on the spot in an abrupt way? David, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I'm all for hearing more about any project Kojima's working on. He's one of those guys, kind of like with Final Fantasy. I've only dabbled in a few of his games. I've played, the Metal Gear, just a few. I've tried, I have Death Stranding, some game I need to get into still. But every time I see one of his projects, it always looks very unique and interesting. Like again, that Artur kind of style. Again, I always equate it to entertainment, like a Tarantino or something like that. or David Fincher. He's just a really good, I don't want to call him a filmmaker, but he's just interesting. It's not something that you see every day. So if he's working on something new and it's a new IP, it's not a sequel, I think that's great. Because I think, I don't know, this new IP is cool, especially if it's coming from him and he's not tethered to any major. It's just his company. Like he can do whatever he wants. And well, I know like with Death Stranding, it was kind of mixed reviews. I think it's cool that he's basically unleashed now and he can just do what he wants in his own world, in his own mind, and make his own playgrounds up. So it's exciting. Hello?
Ooh.
Oh, we lost Swaim's
Oh,
audio
lost
again.
I thought
Swaim.
something happened to me. I was like,
Oh yeah.
We lost his audio. He's gone.
No.
All right, he'll be
He's
back
gonna
in a
come
minute.
back.
This unfortunately happened to him last week too. Yeah, I am.
How about now?
Oh, there he is. He's
Yeah.
back. That was
Yeah.
quick.
Knew it.
Instant
All right.
return.
Ryan, you were saying, please.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, like, I appreciate Kojima as somebody who just has his own vision for a game and goes and does it. But it's just I've never really connected with any of his stuff personally, which to David's analogy, it's a lot like filmmakers in that way. Like I do like Tarantino's stuff, but there are certain directors who have a vibe where it's just like, yeah, it's not really my scene. So I'm glad that there are companies like Sony that are giving tons of funding and freedom to people like Kojima to just go out and try new ideas rather than just have games be, focus tested franchise things that barely iterate every year.
Yeah, it's cool that gamers get auteurs. I completely agree. Casey, what are your thoughts?
Kind of similar to Ryan. I haven't played all of Kojima's games, but I do appreciate them. I really enjoy the story in the whole Metal Gear Solid series, and I like seeing new things that he does because they're off the wall and crazy and interesting, and that's what I like to see. So it's very cool that we get to see more of it, and I'm glad that it's not going to be a direct sequel from Death Stranding, whatever it is. He said he would consider making a sequel, but it wouldn't be a direct continuation from the first game. We also know it's not Silent Hill. We also know it's not Metal Gear. So it's either a far off, somehow connected to the world of Death Stranding or something totally new. I would prefer something totally new. But
I would prefer something totally new as well. Of course, he did say that Death Stranding was a new genre called Strand games, so maybe he'll attempt to legitimize that statement by making another Strand game. But I also feel like in auteur style, he doesn't owe us consistency. He can stay stuff and then do whatever he wants, and that's part of the fun. But I agree with Gaming Devil 800, who says there shouldn't be a sequel to these, what I call journey games, are only as good as standalone things. That's kind of how I feel about it, where it does have that Tarantino vibe David was talking about. I would always rather see him just do a sequence of game ideas than build out a franchise almost. I'm glad he got Metal Gear Solid out of his system, and I hope it kind of stays that way till he needs money again. I want to see his weird stuff, whatever crazy stuff he's going to think of next. I love Death Stranding, if you couldn't tell. But I think we did it. I think that's all we've got today. It wasn't the fastest news day ever, but it was great to chat, and we got to talk about some fun things. Thanks to my panel for joining me, of course. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, David. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks to everyone in the audience. I want to say stick around for Up at Noon, but I didn't do my job and check. Well, the thread is active. Yeah, they made a thumbnail. Stick
It was
around
talked
for Up
about
at
in the morning
Noon.
meeting this morning, so it should be happening.
That's true. Max talked about it. That's right. So Up at Noon will be happening in about 20 minutes right here. And I think that's all I got. Thanks, everybody. So
happy
long.
almost Halloween.
That's the one. Thank you, Casey.